Hello everyone, this is General Hand Grenade. Welcome to my war room in Prince George, British Columbia. This video is the second in my series of how to build a global war army. I'm showing you how I built my global war armies, but in this game it's not a set rule on how to build your army, so you can build your armies any way you see fit. I'm just showing you how I built mine and maybe give you ideas on how to build yours. Because I tell you, when I started this a couple months ago, I would have appreciated somebody doing a video like this so I could see, okay, where am I going to get these pieces from? Now, Russia's pretty easy because they don't have a lot of extra units, units that are unusual. And the Russian units are pretty easy to find. Although I did find some units that maybe you hadn't really thought about, so I'll show you those too. Yesterday when I was doing my video on Germany, I noticed that like I started the video out, I zoomed in. You can see this is zoomed out right now. I want to zoom in so that you can see the pieces better. And so I wasn't really looking at the camera, and so like when I was showing you the website there, I didn't realize that you couldn't see what I was doing, so I apologize for that. I'm going to keep it zoomed out until I come over here to look at the pieces. So let's just go to the website first, okay? Show you how to start building your armies, or how I started. Okay, so I showed you on the German video. Let me just tilt this up a little bit, okay? I showed you on the German video on how you go to global war. Here, let's just start a new page here. You go to global war on historical board gaming right here, and then you go to expansion sets. I'm going to show you this again because I wasn't really showing you before. Or not, sorry, not expansion sets. Let's try that again. You want to go to download rules for global war. And then there's a whole bunch of things in here. Like, so this is where you would download your setup charts and things like that, right? And here's the America rule. So you can go there and it will show you how to, or what you should do if you have America pieces like you seen yesterday that I had. So, and here's the marker. So all the markers, the rules will be in there. But what we're looking at right now is it says needed units for game there. So you click on that and there they are right there. And I'm not sure, here's the Soviet Union over here that we're looking at. I'm not sure how accurate these are. I will get a sense of that more when I'm playing the game. I do know the torpedo boat destroyers and the coastal subs. I took a look at that. So here is the setups here. Now in the 1936 setup, you only needed one coastal submarine, no torpedo boat destroyers. But in the 1939 setup, as you see there, you actually need 5 coastal submarines. Yeah, 5 coastal submarines and 1 torpedo boat, sorry, 2 torpedo boat destroyers. So that's what you would need for this game, is 5 coastal subs and 2 torpedo boat destroyers. So let's just move on to the next page. Now, how I start, where am I here? Okay, how I start is I go to this. I go here, if you can see my cursor there, sail, sail, sail. Now this is the best place to start. So like you can get cheap units. Like if you don't have any Russian aircraft carriers, there it is, 5 cents for a Russian carrier. And I was showing you these yesterday. I want to tell you about these. Somebody made a comment on there. Like I said, to start there with the Germans, but they said, well, yeah, but they don't have any black ones, and they haven't had them for the longest time. They had all the other colors. Yeah, I guess I didn't, I've forgotten about that, because it doesn't matter to me what color they are, like, because I paint them, right? So it really doesn't matter to me what color they are. I actually got them in mustard yellow for one set, and the Italian brown for the other set, because I also use those for the Spanish nationalists and the Italians, and then the ones that I wanted for Germany, I just painted them black. So I don't know what you can do for that. I guess probably the best thing that you can do is when you go there, here, let's just click on that. And so you say you want the black one, and it says that the option's not available. What you can do is add to wish list, or usually like this, because some of the other ones are in stock, it's not going to give you that option. But for a lot of the things that you go to, what it'll do is it'll say put me on a waiting list. I've found that if you click on that and you give your information, that they will restock that a lot faster. If nobody does that, then they don't really they don't really restock the things as much as you would like them to. So you kind of have to click that and to restock them. And if that's not working, then send them a message. There's places on here where you can contact them. Here it says over here contact, and so you click on that and you contact them and say, hey, when are you going to put in some more of those black um, uh, German battle pieces, the Axis miners. I really like some of those, and like they might tell you, look, we're not going to restock that. That's why they're in the sales section or whatever. At least you know, and you can move on and try to find something else, right? Or they might, oh, okay, so they'll restock them. Once people start saying, hey, we need some of these, then that might get them motivated to start doing that. So here, here's the Russians here. We're doing Russia today. So anyway, that's to answer the question that the guy had yesterday. So just contact them and ask them. Now, these ones do have the Russian brown, like I noticed, and that's the ones that I was buying. So if you open this up and take a look, like there's a lot of the things that you need. Like you're starting with your Axis and Allies game. Well, there's a ton of stuff in here that you need that isn't in the Axis and Allies game. Like here's some different kind of infantry. Like you could use those for Marines if you wanted. I use them for the Republican Spanish because I've got all kinds of different types of infantry skulls. But here you've got your transport planes. So if you buy two of these sets here for the Russians and they're on sale, then you'll get your transport planes. You'll get 4 of them, and that should be enough. Even though it said 5 in the thing there, I doubt if you're going to buy 5 transport planes for the Russians. You probably never buy more than 2, even if that. So here's your medium bombers. So you get 2 in each set, so that would give you 4. Here's a couple of tactical bombers. You already get lots of tactical bombers in Axis and Allies, but there's more of them. Here's a couple of early war fighters, so that gives you a couple of different kinds of fighters. You're using the ones from Axis and Allies, and then you got these ones here. There's 2 heavy tanks that you get, so you'll have 4 heavy tanks. And I was talking a bit in the Germany video as well about the difference between mechanized and motorized. Well, here's motorized. You see they've got wheels on these trucks here. So you order 2 of these sets, that's going to give you 4 trucks. And then you go to where you buy a set of these and you buy a set of 5, that'll give you 9 motorized trucks, and that should be enough. And then here's a mech that has tracks on it, and plus the out of box Axis and Allies pieces, they also have tracks. So that gives you 2 kinds of mechs, and you need 2 kinds of mechs because you've got your regular ones and then you've got your advanced mechanized infantry. There's a couple of a couple of tank destroyers. So that gives you 4 of those, and that might be enough. And there's some medium tanks there. They're the same ones as the little nicer sculpt, though, the same ones as the Axis and Allies. There's a couple of light tanks. So you'll get 2 of those, and if you get 2 sets, that's 4. And then you get a set of them, that's 5 more. There's 9 of those. Same with these. You get 2 of these armored cars. You buy these 2 sets of this, and then you buy a set of armored cars, and there you go. You got 9 armored cars. And then these things as well. These are what you used for your instead of what is it there? I'm just looking at the chart here. Oh, your advanced artillery. You don't use advanced artillery for these guys. Instead, you use these things. And we'll get into those in a second. But they're even more powerful than most of the advanced artillery. They're those rocket trucks that might have seen before. So anyway, that's where you would start. And then I want to show you something else really quickly before I zoom in with the camera. Let's go to, is it this one? Okay, here. So they've got all these expansion sets, right? And this one here is Winter War. It's the one with between the Russians and the Finns, right? And I have, when I was looking through all these expansion sets, I bought so many friggin' neutrals that I've got everything I need to play just about all of these expansion sets. The only thing I don't have, and I'd buy them if I could, but I don't have these markers here. Like I've got factories and I've got all the planes, I've got all the tanks, I've got all the fighters, I've got everything. I just don't have these markers. And I don't need these ski troop markers because I have ski troops. Like you look at these guys down here, I've got ski troops for the Russians and ski troops for the Finns. And they're both the same, I just painted them different colors. But what I don't have, or what I didn't have, is this thing right here. It's called RF9 Aerosani, I think it's an old snowmobile, put it that way. That's what that thing is there, and it's for the Russians. And so if you're looking for something and you can't find it, and what I'm speaking specifically of is like if you go to the battle pieces and the 3D printed ones, you're looking for something in particular, like you want to buy a P40 or something like that, and it's out of stock, as quite often these things are. What you can do is go to Shapeways. On Shapeways, Historical Board Gaming has, like, there you go, Historical Board Gaming by by Douglas Friend, and it's he's got 3 pages worth of stuff, and you'll recognize a lot of the units on here. They're the 3D printed ones. The only thing is that you have to paint them, right? Like there's the German cruiser there, and anyway, there's that Aerosani. So I just came here and I was buying all those air bases and everything, so I just threw one of those in there and I painted it brown when I got here. There's the Gigant there, that's that big German transport. But not every one of their 3D pieces are in here, but I would guess at least half, if not most of them, are in here. So there's 3 pages of stuff. Like there's that Super Yamato battleship, and they've been stocking that. Like it's in stock now, but it hadn't been for the longest time. But you could have just come here and got it, right? At Shapeways. So let's just take another look here, another page. So there's a lot of the things that you find in the 3D printed for historical board gaming. Like there's an American carrier there. The Zeppelin. If you can't find the Zeppelin on there, then there you go. You just come here and you get it. And these prices here, I haven't logged in. Once you set up an account, see, like it says sign in. If I don't want to sign in because I don't want you to see my password, right? But once you sign in, then all these prices go down. These aren't the prices that I would pay. Here, I'll just turn it away for a second and sign in. Like here, let's look at something first. Like this thing, some of these are really expensive. I don't know why. They must be a lot bigger or something like that. So let's look at this thing here, 916 here for this thing here. So then I'll just turn this away and sign in here. And okay, let's see what the price is now. Let's look at now. It's $7.45 for this. So once you set up an account here, then the things are cheaper. Like if you first go there first and say, oh, I'm not paying that for that thing. Like here's your Alsace battleship. That's never in stock. The France one, I don't know. Maybe it is now. I haven't looked for a while. But there's that French battleship. It's $2.93 on Shapeways. But you have to paint it, like I said. Anyway, so I think that's all I wanted to show you on here for now. So let's just get to the units, okay? And I showed you these, let's just finish off with these ski troops here. So these ski troops here, this guy here, he's on his skis, and he's using his poles there to steady his gun. What these are Siberians, and this came from the same set. I just painted them blue, and so this is where I got them. I got them down the street at my local hobby store. And I'm not a big fan of the sculpts. Like there was a lot of flashing on them. You have to shave them a bit, and the paint doesn't stick to them very well. There's a type of plastic where the paint doesn't stick very well, and that's the problem that I have with the biggest problem that I have with Airfix as well, is that the paint doesn't stick very well. So, but you know what? I like them. I really like those as opposed to using a chip that says Ski Troops on them. And it's time for me to take a drink of my spiked coffee. Love my Carolines. I only do it on holidays though. Okay, so Regular infantry. Now, these won't have any chips underneath them, and these are all custom infantry. There's two sets of them, and they're both from Pegasus. One was the great coats, and the other one was, I think, Russian soldiers in winter dress or something, number 2. So there's those ones, and like this guy here, he would have been in winter dress. You can see his hat there. He looks a lot like the other guys I just showed you, the ski troops, the Siberians, right? So all of those will be custom infantry, and they won't have chips, and none of them have a round base either. Although these ones, these Russians, this particular set of Russians have very small bases on them. So I'm thinking of maybe like getting myself some markers and gluing them on, just so these guys stand up better. Because if there's anything that I have that falls over easily, it's these Russians. But yet they're the nicest sculpts that I have. So, I'm kind of conflicted about it, right? And then, just like with the Germans, I'm using the out-of-box Russians, unpainted, for the militia. And they don't have a Volkssturm like the Germans had a Volkssturm thing. Every nation has something different, right? And these guys' thing that's different is they've got these guards markers. But I don't put anything on them because what you do is, and I'm not going to get too far into it, but like you fight battles, and if you win a battle, then anybody that you lost in that battle, you can roll and you can promote somebody to a guard. So like this guy gets promoted to a guard, and he would stay on that chip. Now he's +1 attack and defense until he dies, right? So you need some of these Russian guards chips, and that's what they have. They don't have the Volkssturm, they have that. Now with the mountain infantry, I've got the mountain infantry from the Global War 1936 base set. I just love this sculpt here. I think these guys are great. They did an awesome job with these ones, and their militia sculpts were great too. It's just I had all these Axis and Allies players or guys. I thought I'd use them, right. And for the Marines, I got the 1914 sculpt, just like I did with the Germans, and it's a nice sculpt. All the 1914 sculpts are nice. And I glued them onto the Marine chip. I glued them on, I'll just tell you, like I know some of you know that I'm repeating myself here, but I glued them on because they're much easier to pick up and move around. The problem is that if it's your budget that you're worried about, then you don't want to do that, because then you're going to need more chips, right? Like you don't necessarily need 5 Russian Marines every game, and 5 German Marines every game, and 5 everybody, So you might never need a Russian Marine in a certain game, so you don't need a chip for those, and you could be using those chips for the Americans or for somebody else, right? But if you've got the money and you don't mind spending it on this stuff, then you can do something like I've done here, and that's just glue them onto the chips. And the airborne, they've got airborne pieces at Historical Board Gaming, and I think that you got a couple of these in that set that I showed you, the Russian set. So if you get 2 of these guys in there, then that's all you need. You don't need to buy any more. And then you just buy the airborne. See, I don't like the other one had the Fallschirmjäger for the Germans. These ones actually say airborne on them because they don't have their own chip for airborne for the Russians. And I showed you the ski troops there. Okay, so for factories, again, we've got the major and the minor factories from Historical Board Gaming, and probably the best way to buy those is in that set that Doug and I put together for Global 40. And then you're going to need more factories besides that. They sell these 5 at a time and these 5 at a time for $3.45, just like everything else on their site. And this I'm going to use for to mark Moscow. It's the capital city, so I'm marking it. And this is, I think it's St. Basil's Cathedral. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. It's one of the most recognizable buildings in Moscow. Moving on. Okay, let me get my thing here. I'm gonna have to start reading here. So the artillery, that's a 152 millimeter howitzer, and this is out of box from the Axis and Allies game. So you'll recognize that, and you get artillery in excuse me, you get artillery in those sets as well, but I was using those artillery. They're slightly different, and they're a different number on them. They're slightly different. I'm using those for the Republican Spanish because they also use Russian units, And so I've just taken those because I had enough artillery in the Axis and Allies Europe 1940 game that I didn't need any more artillery for this game, and so I'm just using those ones. And then you've got your Katyusha self-propelled artillery, and this is what you're going to use for your advanced artillery. And they're quite powerful. Those are handy. And then there's the anti-aircraft gun. That's just from Axis and Allies 1940, and that's an 85 millimeter M1939. The armored car. So where are we now? Okay, over here in Afghanistan. So we have the armored car here, and the cavalry. And like I was saying with the Germans, exactly the same numbers for those. And so why would you buy one over the other? I'm making my armored car be able to boost the artillery by one. Because what these were scout vehicles in the war, and so they could find out where the enemy positions are. They could radio the artillery battery, and then the artillery would be able to target better, right? And that's on attack and defense. And then the cavalry scalp, you get that from historical board gaming. The base set, the 1936 base set. You buy these 5 at a time, and I bought 5 for each nation. Although I don't think I think what I did was I bought 5 French ones, and then I took a couple of those and used them for Anzac, because I don't think that you're going to need 5 horses for the Anzac or the Americans. Yeah, I don't think I bought 5 American ones either. So because why would you put 5 horses on a boat, right? The Americans weren't known for the cavalry anyway. So I don't see them buying a lot of cavalry and transporting them over to Europe or to Asia. I just don't see it. But who knows? Like, if I'm wrong, then I'll just buy some more, right? Okay, so moving on here. Now we've got motorized and we've got mechanized infantry, and I talked about that. I'll talk about it again though. So motorized, you've got wheels on it, and these things here can tow your artillery and your anti-aircraft gun. So they normally move 1. Well, if you tow them, then they can move 2. So if you pair these 1-to-1 with an artillery, you can move it 2 spaces. You can go into battle with it. And then your mechanized infantry, these are the ones with the tracks on it. And these things are great in that they can blitz. And blitzing is vastly different in this game than it is in Global 40, and we'll get into that when it's time to talk about it. But yeah, these are much different than the other game. And so when you look at like this one is, you get this in the set that I showed you to begin with, from Historical Board Gaming. And this is the out-of-box one from Axis and Allies, Europe 1940. So this one here I'm using as your regular mechanized infantry, and they can blitz 1-to-1 with tanks. And then this one here, this is also Historical Board Gaming. I think it might even be the same piece, It's just that this one is hollowed out and this one isn't. So because they look different, I will use these for the advanced mechanized infantry, and you would have to develop that technology in order to be able to purchase these. But I think that's what I'm going to do. So unlike the Germans, which were hard to find something like this, there's 3 very distinct sculpts for these. And as I was saying earlier, like, you buy 2 sets and you get 4 of these, and then you just buy 1 set more of, a set of 5 of those, and there you got 9 of them, and that should be enough to play the game, right? Okay, so moving on to the tanks here. This would be your out-of-box Axis and Allies tank from 1940. This would be your out-of-box tank from 1941. And the 1940 tank, that's a T-34. And the 1941 tank, that's a JS-2. And then you've got this third one here, and that's the same sculpt as this one, but the sculpts for the tanks in Historical Board Game are slightly smaller than the sculpts in Axis and Allies, but they're nicer detail on them. Like, there's really nice detail on this. So this is also a T-34, and that's from Historical Board Gaming, and you get 2 of these in each one of those sets, plus you could buy sets of 5 if you wanted. So down here is the light tank, and you get 2 of those in each of those sets. So if you bought one more set, then you would have 9 of those as well, and that should be enough. And that's the T26 light tank. And then the big one here, and you're probably going to want these for sure. That's the KV2, and you get 2 of those in the set, and then you can buy a set of those if you want, or like maybe 4 is good, because you have to develop that technology. You can't start developing technology until you're at war with a major power. So, the game's going to be 2, 3, 4 hours old by the time you can even start trying to develop it. And then as you progress down the line there, like you can only make 1 roll per turn on that one thing. And it could take you half the game to do it. And then you can only build 1 once you get there, right? So maybe 4 of them would be enough. But Russia actually starts with heavy armor. They start with the first square already taken. Like here, let's take a look over here at heavy armor. That's number 3. They already start with a pie like Germany does on the first space there. So they've only got 3 more spaces to go, and then they've developed heavy armor. So that's probably the one you're going to go for, right? Because you already started down that line. And plus, it's really handy for the Russians. I mean, just like any other Axis and Allies game that you played, the land battle is more important for the Russians than the sea battle will be. And then you got your tank destroyer down here, and you get 2 of these in the set. So if you buy 2 sets, you'll get 4 of them. That is a tank destroyer. That's an Su-76. So where are we here? Oh, we got to go back to the coffee there. We don't want my coffee getting cold. Like when you're spiking it with Carolyn's, you don't want to be throwing it away, right? Plus, I just got up. I'm trying to wake up here. I had all this set up last night, but I just thought, no way, I'm not doing this tonight. I was too tired. Okay, so fighters. I've got 3 fighters, and they all do the same thing. Like one of them's not going to fight better than the other or anything like that, unless you roll better, in which case you might have a favorite. So these first ones here. Let's just get this thing here. These first ones here you get in the set, and these are Russian early warfighters. And you can see how much smaller they are than the other 2 scalps, right? But that's an early warfighter, and that's historical board gaming piece. You get 2 of those in the set, so you'd have 4 of these. And if you had enough fighters already, like you got enough of them from Axis and Allies, then you can use them for your Republic and Spanish. If you're not planning on purchasing the Spanish Civil War set. Or you could use it for the Communist Chinese, because those nations are part of the Comintern. The Comintern is Russia in this game. Okay, so the next one here I got from the 1941 game, and that's the Warhawk there. The P-40 Warhawk. I'm not sure that the Russians had a P-40 Warhawk, but with that game, they just, the Allies get all 1 sculpt and the Axis get all 1 sculpt. But, it doesn't matter what nation actually had that unit. But anyway, it's if you want to come over here and fight me because I'm using the P-40 Warhawk, go for it. I'll still roll lower than you. Okay, so there's that one, and then there's the Yak 3, and that's the one that you're probably most familiar with. This is from the Global 40 game, or Europe 40 is where it comes from. And that's the fighter out of box from Axis and Allies. And then if we move along here, I didn't grab 2 of them, but there's actually 2. So this is the tactical bomber, and this is the one that you get out of box. Let me just see if I can find one. That's the out of box one from Axis and Allies. But as I was showing you in that picture there, there's actually, yeah, this one is different. Okay, so let me just find a stand here. Because you got 2 of these in that set there, you'd have 4 of them. So you'd have your tactical bombers from Axis and Allies, and they're almost identical, but they're not even the same plane actually. So those are the Global War, or sorry, the historical board gaming pieces. Tactical bombers. Okay, Su-2 is this one here. That's the historical board gaming piece, and the other one is a IL Sturmovik. Anyway, that's from the Europe 40 game. The next one you get here, and that's this plane. It looks a lot different than most of the medium bombers in the game. Most of the medium bombers in this game have the turned up wing in the back, but this one doesn't. This one is an IL-4 medium bomber for the Russians. And again, you get 4 of those, or 2 of those in each set, so you get 4, and then if you thought you might need more, then you could buy another pack of 5 of them. And the ones beside that, that is the transport plane, and that's a Yak 6. And you definitely aren't going to need to buy a 5-pack if you were to buy 4, or if you were to buy 2 of those sets and get 4 of them. You will not need to buy a 5-pack of them. But if you didn't buy that set, then a 5-pack would do you as well, right? And you could even, like, that's probably too many. Like, you could paint one up, if you did painting, you paint one up for the Australians or something, the Anzac. But most people don't paint their pieces, though. I can tell you that it does add up in price when you do that. Actually, let me just show you what I've got here now. Most of my paint that I use is this Tamiya paint here, and it's TS11 maroon. And G.I. Joe made a video this week on him doing his painting, and he was remarking on how much different they are than the out of box. Like, here is the out of box color, and it's vastly different. And so when I painted my first piece, like, it didn't look that much different when you match it up to the lid on the can, but then you spray paint it on, and then quite often that happens with paint. It looks completely different when it's out of the can, right? But I really liked it. Like, it's such a deep, rich color that I thought, you know what, I'm going to go with it. So I painted all of my units, all the planes and tanks and cannons and everything. I painted them all that color, but that can add up, I tell you. Those cans are about $10 a piece. And, but you know, I've done it over time, right? I've been doing that for probably close to a year now. So over time, it didn't seem like that much to buy 4 cans or 3 cans or whatever I bought. I can't even remember by now. So, oh, we're not quite done. The bomber there. So the bomber is a PE8, and that's just the out of box from Axis and Allies, Europe 1940. And then this is one of the 3D printed pieces from historical board gaming here. This is the seaplane. I only got one of these because I didn't envision, like, I bought them for Axis and Allies, and I didn't envision a big role for them in the game, because the Russians need to buy as many land troops as they can to stem the tide of the Germans in that game, right? So I didn't buy very many of them, but that is a BE4 seaplane. So moving on to the naval units, and most of those are Axis and Allies. Almost all of them are Axis and Allies. So here, there's the battleship, and that is a Gagnet class, and that's from 1940. And then I just put a flag on this recently. I've never ever used oops, I'm not even showing you here. I've never ever used a carrier for the Russians. And then the light carrier in front, you don't even need to buy a whole set of those. But like, you buy a set and then you paint a couple of them up for the Russians, and you paint one up for the Anzac, and you know, for the French, because they're not going to need 5 carriers. But yeah, the Americans are definitely going to need at least 5 of those small carriers. So you'll figure that out. But they're pretty handy because they're not a capital ship, and they don't take as long to build, and they don't cost as much. You can only put 1 plane on them, but they look like they're going to be pretty handy. And then we move back here. So there is your cruiser there, and he's out of box from the 1940 game, and he would be a Kirov class cruiser, and the destroyer is a Gnevny class. Now the subs, I've got 2 subs here, just because I had to. I really like these subs here. So these are U class, and I'm not sure what nation they come from, because they're that 1941 sculpt, so they could be anybody's, right? Anybody on the Allies side. But anyway, I'm using those. And then there's from 1940 the out of box sculpt as well, and that is a long Russian name that I can't friggin' pronounce. That's from Europe 40. And then over here, let's just move the camera. Gotta remember that. Now I'm used to having, like, I've got a wide angle lens on here, right? And I'm used to being able to just point around and stuff. So this is the Baltic timber ship. That's the transport that I'm using. And I didn't even look up that one. I don't know what that one is. That's either from 1941 or is from that Russian set. I don't think you get any boats in that Russian set though, do you? So this must be from 1941, this one here. But you can buy them in either place. Any Axis and Allies transport will do. You're probably not going to use that many transports with the Russians or Marines for that matter, right? Like you might use a few of them, but you know, like why there's only a few opportunities to attack the Russians, or sorry, to attack the Germans by boat, right? It's probably easier just to go across the land and take them out. So over here, there's the torpedo boat destroyer, and that's the sculpt from the 1914 game, and he's been painted. But some of the sculpts in that game are actually pretty darn close. Like this one, you could probably get away with just using the Russian one. It would have been a lighter brown, but you could have done it right. And this is the sub from the 1914 game. And that's what I've done for most of the coastal subs. The only two coastal subs that aren't the 1914 ones are the German and the Italians. All the rest of them are this sub sculpt here from the 1914 Axis and Allies game, because that's what they were. They were leftover subs from the First World War. So why not use this one here? But you can also buy both of these boats from the 1936 base set. But you have to buy them 5 at a time. In this case here, you actually do need 5 of these. That's probably the only nation where you actually need 5 sculpts. So there you go. You can buy 5 Russian sculpts from historical board gaming from the base set. What else? Looking around here, I think that's it. You know, that's it for my Russians. The Russians were pretty easy and pretty straightforward. Most of the sculpts that you get are in the Axis and Allies or in those 2 sets, and then you just buy a couple of more sets of 5. And like I've been showing you these factories here, but you can use any factories that you have, you know, like you've been using the old classic Axis and Allies gray factories or white factories or whatever. You do need 2 different factory sculpts, of course. You need major and minor. So either whether they're painted or whether they're, you know, the little tokens that have the numbers on them. You just need something to show that you've got a major or a minor factory. But you can use any factory sculpt that you want. You don't have to use the ones that I'm using. And there's several different options for those, including those wrist pieces that look like an industrial complex, right? So there's those. And I think that's all I've got for you here today on the Russians. I think Japan is next. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to fix those roundels up there because they're not in the right spot, right? I know that I think that the Russian is supposed to move over and go ahead of the Japan, and I think maybe the rest of them are right, but I dropped that thing, and so that's why none of the incomes are right either, because you can see how they all slid down after I dropped it on the floor there. I'm just glad I didn't bust it or something. Anyway, let's just zoom this back out. Okay, so I will go and upload this, and I will start on the next one, which I believe is Japan. So take care, everyone. General Hand Grenade out.